Imagine waking up one morning to see a letter on your doorstep. Not just any letter, but an official notice from your HOA telling you that you now owe $50,000. Yes, you heard that right. $50,000, all because of the color of paint on your house. Shocking, isn't it? But this is a real situation that many homeowners in America have faced. And today, I'm going to tell you this unbelievable story. So stay with me, because what you are about to hear will leave you questioning the very system that is supposed to protect your community. This is not just a story about paint. It is a story about power, rules, and how one decision can turn a family's life upside down. So let's dive in and uncover how something as simple as choosing a paint shade ended in financial disaster for one homeowner. The story begins with a man named David, an ordinary homeowner who lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood. David loved his house. He worked hard his whole life to buy it, and like any responsible homeowner, he wanted to maintain it. One summer, he noticed that the exterior walls of his house had started to fade. The once bright paint had become dull and patchy, so he decided it was time for a fresh coat of paint. He went to the local hardware store, looked at dozens of shades, and picked a color he thought would look beautiful. It was a warm, beige tone. Something modern yet elegant. He never thought that this simple choice would spark one of the biggest battles of his life. When the painting was finished, David stood back and admired his home. To him, it looked brand new, cleaner, fresher, like the kind of house you see in magazines. His neighbors even complimented him, saying the house looked fantastic. For a brief moment, he felt proud, but little did he know the HOA board members had already set their eyes on him. Just 2 days later, David received a letter in his mailbox. The letter stated that he had violated the HOA rules by painting his house in unapproved color. David was confused. He checked the community guidelines, and nowhere did it specifically mention the shade he chose. It only stated that neutral earth tones were acceptable. His beige paint was exactly that, neutral and earthy. So why was he being fined? David thought it was a simple misunderstanding. Maybe a small fine or just a warning. But when he read further, his jaw dropped. The fine amount was not $200, not $500, but $50,000. Imagine standing there holding a letter that tells you you owe more than the price of a luxury car just because of paint. David felt his legs go weak. $50,000 was more than his yearly salary. How could anyone justify such a punishment? He immediately called the HOA office, demanding an explanation. The representative coldly replied that his chosen shade of beige was slightly off from the approved palette, and because he didn't seek pre-approval, the board had imposed the maximum fine allowed. David was speechless. He argued that the rules were vague, that his color was within the earth tone family, but the board refused to listen. Instead, they threatened him, saying if he didn't pay the fine within 90 days, they would put a lien on his house and even begin foreclosure proceedings. In that moment, David realized this wasn't just about paint. This was about control. The news spread quickly across the neighborhood. Some neighbors supported David, saying the fine was outrageous. Others sided with the HOA, claiming rules were rules. David decided to fight back. He hired a lawyer, spending thousands of dollars from his savings. The lawyer argued that the HOA had been inconsistent in applying rules. Other houses in the same community had similar colors, yet no fines were issued. Clearly, David was being targeted unfairly. During the hearing, David even presented photos of nearby homes with beige, cream, and tan shades. But the HOA board remained stubborn, insisting his shade was too warm compared to the cooler beige tones allowed. Can you imagine such pettiness? Measuring the warmth of a color to decide a man's financial fate. It was absurd. Months dragged on. Legal fees piled up. Stress consumed David and his family. Every day, he feared losing his home. His children stopped inviting friends over because they were embarrassed. His wife broke down in tears countless times. This once simple house project had turned their lives into a nightmare. Finally, the case reached local news. Reporters covered the story, and the public was outraged. People across the country couldn't believe a homeowner was being fined $50,000 for paint. Social media exploded. Thousands of comments criticized the HOA, calling them bullies, greedy, and power-hungry. The pressure grew so intense that eventually city officials stepped in to mediate. After months of battle, the HOA reluctantly reduced the fine, but only to $5,000, still a massive amount for paint. But David had no choice. Exhausted, financially drained, he agreed just to end the nightmare, Even though technically he did nothing wrong, he felt defeated. The experience left deep scars, and from that day on, he never looked at his house the same way. Every time he walked past those beige walls, he remembered the injustice, the sleepless nights, the money lost, all because of an HOA that cared more about rules than people. Now here's the bigger question. If this could happen to David, could it happen to anyone? The truth is, yes. HOA boards across America have immense power. They can fine you, sue you, and even take your house for what may seem like the smallest of reasons. Sometimes it's paint, sometimes it's a mailbox, a garden, or even a flag. And while HOAs are meant to maintain property values, stories like David's show us the dark side of this system, where power goes unchecked and ordinary homeowners pay the price. So the next time you hear someone talk about painting their house, remember this story. A simple can of paint led to $50,000 in fines, legal battles, and endless stress, all because of a homeowners association. What do you think? Was the HOA right to enforce their rule, or did they go too far? Let me know in the comments, because I'd love to hear your opinion. And if you found this story eye-opening, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more shocking HOA stories. You never know. The next one might be even crazier than this.